How rude of you. Right? Interview is over. Sir.
I said good day.
So the great Carroll Shelby is going to build a car to beat Ferrari with a Ford.
Correct.
And how long did you tell them you needed? 200 or 300 years?
90 days.
I'm curious, just kind of at the start, when you were kind of understanding who these characters were, I'm curious just kind of how you broke into kind of the attitudes and physicalities of these men, and just kind of what the process was working with James Mangold and figuring out who they were.
For me, it's sort of a strange kind of spiral thing. I don't really have any particular technique. I just kind of start seeing what there is, and you pick little bits, and then you realize that thing you ignored earlier is actually really important, and and you gradually piece it together. And and there's always at a timeline. It's sort of like a temporary piece of performance art in a way, isn't it? Because you're just like, hey, that's what it is today. Here we go. And then Jim is great. We worked together on 310 to Yuma. Sure. He loves directing. He's a great bloody director. And he's a bloody good actor, and all was well with the world.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, that research phase is really fun, and there's a lot, and each one is different depending on. I mean, Carroll had there's a lot of existing footage of him, so that was something that you don't normally get. But yeah, I remember, it's funny you say, I remember doing this with De Niro for this movie, The Good Shepherd, a long time ago, and we had a lunch with family members of people in the CIA. It was a movie about the CIA, and we just walked out, and he said, yeah, it's the thing. You just never know what you're going to get. It might be the smallest little story or the thing, but you never know what's going to help you or where it's going to come from.
Well, we heard he's difficult.
Ken? No, Ken's a puppy dog.
Look, I think for me when Icoca gives his speech, about kind of the future of Ford and the kind of propose the idea of buying Ferrari, when it's sort of like halted in the middle, he's sort of left with this decision to sort of say, okay, I'm kind of cooked here, or I'm gonna keep pushing through, and I'm gonna kind of keep going for this, and that thing sort of keeps happening to him. He goes to Ferrari, and then that door kind of gets slammed, and then he's in the office, and it's sort of like, or what did he say? And then and it's to sort of keep just kind of, I think in corporate culture, you can't sort of leap over the line, but you can kind of wiggle your way over the line a little bit. And I think he keeps kind of doing that, and it's a momentous step, as small as it might be, for a man like that in that situation. And I just wanted to kind of keep doing that in I wanted him to maintain his integrity every time he was there,
Enzo Ferrari will go down in history as the greatest car manufacturer of all time. Why? Is it because he built the most cars?
Part of the challenge of a period piece like this is to approximate some of the physicality of some of these people, and I'm struck by that as I watch the movie, that most of these guys are veterans, and the way they hold themselves physically, the way that the clothes drape on them, right? The way they move around. I think it's well done in the film. I don't think, and it's not something anybody would notice necessarily, but if you saw a lot of contemporary body language up there, you would definitely feel it.
I'm kind of just having also the experience of making Walk the Line. I'm curious kind of what your line is between actual factual truth and emotional truth, and because obviously every story is going to change when you're translating it for the medium, so kind of what is your approach in that regard?
Well, the approach is you try and do everything as it happened, with the limit that you can't be boring. And so if it actually took 3 hours for something to happen, I'm not going to make the audience sit for 3 hours and watch a couple of guys waiting in a waiting room. So there's a level where I'm responsible to the audience to deliver an entertainment. At the same time, I'm responsible to get the facts right. And that's kind of it. But the real thing, if you want facts, if you want bullet points, if you want numbers and dates, get a book. The reality is, what we're here to do is to try and create another kind of history, which is a kind of, I think you put your finger on it, it's like an emotional history, a kind of a tone, a sense of the tone of the time, a sense of the place that you can't get from any of those other sources, because we're filling in the holes in all those stories.
Sure. And was that something that you kind of took from the experience of making Walk the Line?
Certainly on Walk the Line, I had the same challenges, but sometimes you get closer to the truth making a dramatic film. I'll give you an example from Walk the Line. I had June and John's cooperation while I was making the film. But what happened was that John would call me one day from the green room of the Larry King show, and he was like, "It's not romantic enough. June agrees with me." And he meant his love story with June in the movie. And I was like, well, of course it's not, John, because you guys aren't telling me anything about your courtship because you were married to other people and you don't want to talk about what happened between you. And he said he'd call me back later. And a week later, him and June invited me to Hendersonville. And they admitted that they had had these run-ins, romantic affairs while married. And that of course, that was hard for them. And they had published several autobiographies and books where they had denied anything had ever happened between them. So in a sense, sometimes when you're trying to get and excavate the truth in a dramatic film, you actually force things out in the open because people do lie and elide and leave things out of their biographies that are not things they want to necessarily memorialize.
And one thing that Carol and Ken have in common is obviously this kind of passion for speed, which is something that comes across so well in this film. You really just feel the passion for it. And I'm curious if that's something that you guys brought with you into this film.
No, I'm a slowpoke.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So are you?
Yeah. No, I was just thinking about you saying that they share a passion for speed, because I always viewed it more as like a passion for creation of an incredible tool, that they have
So it's precision
absolute
too,
control over, you know?
What's it take?
Well, it takes something money can't buy.
Money can buy speed.
What then about speed?
Everyone gets giddy over speed, don't they? Because there's no one who doesn't get exhilaration if you're sitting on a roller coaster. Everyone gets it. There's very few people who are deadpan during that. So we all like it. But do I pursue it all the time? No.
What is the fastest you've ever traveled in a car?
I think I don't know. I mean, upwards. I mean, I guess in Europe, I've been in cars that have been pretty fast. I think in America, I've been in cars up at 120 miles an hour, 115 miles an hour. I think that's probably the limit.
120 sounds right.
That sounds about right.
Are you comfortable at those speeds? I mean,
driving ourselves or being
either, yeah.
Yeah, I think it all depends on who's driving and what state of mind and who's chasing you. You know what I mean?
Obviously, the way James Mangold shoots these cars, it has a certain kind of visceral quality to it. And I'm curious if that's something that you kind of saw him piecing together in your experience on set.
I think it's unavoidable because you just tried to do it as realistically as possible, So, well, you get it. You get that visceral feeling, that sort of feeling of the potential for things going wrong, which you don't get. I don't know. I mean, I haven't had enough experience with CGI and stuff, but it seems like it would be more tricky to get with that kind of way of doing it instead of actually have these cars just racing around with brilliant drivers behind the wheel.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he talked a lot about that in pre-production, about how he wanted to shoot and how he wanted to put the audience in the car and really give them that feeling, and that was a goal. And to do that, as Christian says, you really want to do it in camera. You want to really have it, put the camera in the car and drive it that fast so that people get that feeling, because it's never the same when you put it on a green screen.
There's stuff that delineates speed that's hard to kind of put your finger on if you were trying to do it in a green screen situation, but just the vibration, of the car, the particulates in the air, the sense of the wind, the sense of the movement of the sun as they're taking turns, swinging from one side of the car, all this stuff. And then lastly, I'd say that action, we're so used to expensively portrayed action in movies, but what I think we're less used to is that we give a damn about the characters while we're watching the film. Sure. And so while we didn't have $200 million to spend on our picture, you gain so much by caring about and loving the characters. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge plus. I mean, I always think about the original Rocky and Sly, didn't have all that much when they were staging that last fight sequence with Apollo Creed. No, it'll never go down in history as one of the most cinematic fights ever filmed, but it is one of the most remembered. And why is it one of the most remembered? Because you love Rocky.
Yeah. Well, and actually, in one scene that I just wanted to ask you about, and kind of a small thing, is just the fight that that Ken and Carol have.
Shut your mouth and let me do my thing. All right. Come here.
Morning, Shelby.
Morning, Molly. Up yours. I'll go to hell.
Because you guys both have experience doing action movies, but this is not a choreographed, like, skillful fight. Oh, is that kind of just a nice change of pace for you
How
guys?
rude of you. How rude of you. Right? He has no idea how
It wasn't
insult.
it wasn't meant as an insult, sorry.
All right, so we've fallen off a little bit, but that was a lot of work, and a lot of to the choreographers, to the stunt team that doubled us for the parts that we couldn't do. It was.
Interview is over, sir.
I said good day.
We're lighter, we're faster. When that don't work, we're nastier. We're gonna make history.